When I made this old guy DIY video, I got ahead of myself a little bit. I ended up breaking off this clip, and it took a bunch of rework and wasted about an hour of my life, and I had to wait overnight. So just know, when you do this job, there's a screw here with a 7mm head and a screw here with a 7mm head that have to be removed before you can take the door panel off. And some vehicles have a third screw down here. This is a 2001 and it does not. So now I'll let you get back to the rest of the video. Thank you. This old guy DIY video has to do with replacing the window regulator on the passenger side of a 2001 Chevy Suburban. So this thing made it 20 years and 185,000 miles. And then the other day, from the driver's side, I hit the switch. I could hear the clicking, which told me the relay worked, but the motor had apparently given up the ghost. So now I'm going to swap this thing out. Should be about a 20-minute job. First thing is, just take your fingers and pull this panel off. And then you just take a pick or a screwdriver, pull this little panel off. Then take a pick or a screwdriver and pull this little thing off. And then you'll see the bolts that we need to remove. So I'll do those three things and get right back to you. When you remove this top triangle piece, you can see there's a slot here and a slot there. And there's a tab on the bottom of this thing. So as you're removing it, be sure that you pull from the top so you don't break the tab off. And that comes out pretty easily. And when it comes to this little guy, you can see it just has tabs on both sides. So I went in there with a pick and I just grabbed from right here with the pick, pulled out, and it came out. So I pulled this piece out, and now you can see up here there's a little 7mm screw that you need to remove. I hadn't done one of these in a while. I thought there should be a second screw, but after removing the one screw up here, I just went ahead and yanked, and I ended up breaking a piece of plastic off. And what you're supposed to do is pry under this front edge, then you can tip this up, and this little piece comes out, and there's a second screw that sits right here. I grab this piece, right there is what you should see. So now I have a JB weld job ahead of me, so I can fix it. But we'll continue on. So that screw went over here. This is the one that came out by the door handle. And now we're ready to take the plastic off and get access to the window control itself. So now we need a 10mm socket. And we're going to remove this piece, which is a clamp on the window itself. This one. This nut on the bottom, this one, here's a clamp on the window again, come down here, I believe there's a nut on the bottom, down here. So before we do that, I'll take and just put some duct tape from the outside of the window here to hold the window up so it doesn't slide down while we're doing all the work on the other side. And this is how I duct tape it, just two pieces. So there was one more 10mm screw right here, and then I'll just disconnect the connector here, and I'm ready to take the other piece out. So that's what the old piece looks like. And when you go to remove it, if you push in these bottom parts first, then you can kind of collapse the thing and just turn it to the side, and then I pull it out on this back edge of the passenger side first. The new unit looks a lot like the old one, so in preparation for install, we have to just back this nut off here, so this little gripper opens up so the glass can slide into it. Take the plastic caps off on the bottom, back this nut off, plastic cap, should be able to install it. When I was removing the old piece, I got a little ahead of myself and I said take this screw off, but the screw above the speaker does not have to come off. That appears to hold this little thing, which is some kind of buffer, just to keep the window in the channel. So when I was reinstalling this or putting the new piece in, I engaged this little stud from the bottom first and then just hand tightened the nut on there. Then I came up and put this nut in by hand, or this bolt in by hand. Then I came over this bolt, that bolt, and tightened up that nut, bottom nut. And you can see possibly, that the window is in these little rubber grippers right now. So we have that aligned properly, but I'm not going to tighten this up until I put the switch back on and run the window switch to the upper position, and then I'll be ready to tighten those two bolts. So when you're ready to try the switch, be sure you plug in this little connector that goes to the new motor. You can see that thing. I'll come over here and just hit this little button. So that's encouraging, it went home. So now that it's in its home up position, I'll tighten this bolt and that bolt, and then I'm ready to remove the duct tape. So the duct tape is off. If I hit the button, window closes and it opens. So with the exception of breaking the clip off that went here, this could have been a nice quick clean operation. And when I'm reinstalling this plastic membrane, and I'll tape it at the top, I'll tape it here at the back side, and I'll put a little piece of tape up here at the front, but I leave the bottom open. So if any water does happen to get in there, I want that water to be able to escape out the bottom as opposed to being trapped. So that's part of the process. Oh, and I didn't show you when I disassembled this thing, but I took this clip off the little control panel, and all it is one tab right here. So you squeeze in on that one, and then it'll come out. Now I'm repairing the plastic clip that I broke off by being in too big a hurry earlier. I decided if I could come up with a mechanical solution, that'd probably be better than just JB Weld. So you can see those little holes I drilled in there. I'm going to put this thing in place. It seems to fit in there pretty nicely. And then I have this light gauge wire. I'm going to cut that, and then I'll wire this thing together first, and then I'll peanut butter with JB Weld when I'm done. Now I've never been known for my dexterity, so to make it easier for an old guy to mate this thing together, I stuck those pieces of wire through there. They're about 3 inches long a piece. And now I can come over here and feed them through, and then I'll get all 4 or all 5 through there first, and then I'll tighten them up one at a time, and it should work out okay. This thing looks like it's mechanically pretty well held together now. So I'll go mix up some JB Weld. We'll paste it on there, put it back on the vehicle tomorrow. For this job I decided to use JB Quick Weld. So I dumped some out there. I normally put a little extra hardener on just for the hell of it. And we'll mix it up and apply it. When I do jobs like this, I always like to err to the side of too much as opposed to too little. So we have that thing all JB welded. We'll leave it sit overnight, and I think I'll be back in action. It took me longer to do this JB Weld repair job than it did to do that whole door regulator. So if you ever have a question, stop. Had I just looked at the manual or gone to YouTube myself as a refresher, I could have saved all this extra work. Well, I'm putting the door panel on, and yesterday in my haste I broke the clip that was in this little area. So looking around the house, the one thing I have that seems to work is this clip. So I took a grinder, I just cut this little notch above it. I'm going to take this clip and drop it in there, and then I'll be able to engage the screw. So I put that little retainer in, just put a little bit of duct tape on here to hold it until the screw comes through the panel to engage it, and then everything should be good. So now it's time for me to put the door back together. And this is what my JB Weld repair looks like, dried up and ready to go. So that looks nice and solid. Should be fun. Now I have the door panel in place. I replaced the screw here. I replaced the screw here. You can see my preference is to remove the light and just let the wire hang out, and then plug the light in and insert the light as a secondary consideration. When putting the door panel back together, I had the wires hanging out, so I just plug the wires in for the lock control on the window, and then you tip this in with that side against the body first. Come down here. You can see there's a locator in the middle. and 2 little clips, and you just push down from above and that should go home. So we have that installed. Now it's a matter of putting this little manual lock and indicator back in. And when you do this thing, the red goes to the back of the vehicle. So we have that little guy back in place. That works. Now it's just a matter of replacing this little light and we'll be done. When you're installing the light, you'll see that there are tabs here on the end, and in my case one is broken off. But the proper installation technique is to stick that left side in first, then you just push in on the right side and that light is installed. There's a tab at the front of this little trim piece, so be sure you stick that tab in first before you push on the back to engage these 2 clips. Now we have everything buttoned up and the window functions as it should. And our little door lock. So what should have taken about 20 minutes took me an hour and a half because I got too crazy and failed to remove this piece and take that extra screw out before I broke it off and had to do all the rework. So hopefully this video helped you. You can learn from my haste and mistake, and I hope you have a great day.